thepascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up, guys? I have a lot of questions, and I am side-eyeing this like a mug. I'm going to say that. I'm going to preface this whole thing really quick and say I'm side-eyeing it just because of how everything is nowadays. Sometimes things are fake out here. People make up things just so that they can get clout and all that. And I'm not sitting here saying that this person isn't telling the truth, but I always cautiously pump the brakes whenever somebody just randomly hops on any person's platform and speaks out. There's always a question of, are they really telling 110% the truth? Were they really there and all that? And I think that's fair for all of us to have that in the back of our minds continuing forward in this video. But there is something that is very interesting. All of this, of course, is revolving around the Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case. We already know everything that we know of, but now we are getting more information, allegedly. And from my understanding, this is coming from the perspective of the Karmelo Anthony camp. Now, here's the thing. There is a video, or at least there was an interview that was done a day or two ago by this platform by Mr. Denali XL, or I think it's double XL. Yeah, double XL. Anyway, he had an interview with someone by the name of Mark Anthony, not the singer, okay? But Mark Anthony, who happens to be good friends, 10 years, friends for 10 years with Andrew Anthony, the Karmelo Anthony's father. And by the way, clearly there's no relation. This man right here in the middle, right here, is a white man, all right? So there is no relation. This is not a family, okay? This is not blood. This is a family friend. They've known this family for a long time. They've known each other for a long time. And what he says in here is extremely interesting. And so I want to get straight into it. Of course, I'm going to be interrupting it, cutting in and out for fair use and all that crap. But if you want to see it in its entirety, please go check out Mr. Denali's, Mr. Denali double XL, his YouTube channel. He had this gentleman on. And again, I am still kind of curious. Is this guy really telling the truth or not? But he does say some things that he says this is racially motivated. I'm not kidding. But mind you, this again is information that's being said. I'm assuming he's gathered this information solely from the Karmelo Anthony family, their perspective. So I think that's very important to understand and keep that in mind when you're listening to this whole thing, all right? Because again, let me just say this too. Karmelo Anthony could also be lying through his dumb teeth, y'all. I'm sorry, we got to leave that on the table. There's a possibility that the kid could be lying. And he could have said a whole bunch of things just so he looks like he is the damsel in distress, right? That he is in trouble. Or straight up, what happened to him actually happened to him. But understand, the family's taking that information and they're believing him, which is understandable. It's their son. Of course, they're going to take his side no matter what is said by him. But this is a family member or a friend of a family, I'm sorry, of the family that's now speaking out and saying that this was racially motivated. And I think that's very interesting. So let's take a look at this. Let's rock and roll.
Both approaching him, and one had already shoved him. I mean, okay. even the brother who's alive said, I quote him, "My brother always has my back."
Now, he says, just so you know, it kind of cuts out in the beginning. He said both boys, the Metcalf boys, approached Karmelo. And then, of course, Austin, I'm assuming, put his hands on Karmelo. All right. So, of course, we already know the rest of the story there. But that piece, we still are trying to find out whether or not the Metcalf boys had something to do with this, or if it really was between Austin Metcalf and Karmelo. But here's the thing. He did quote something that I've quoted on my lives when we've covered this case in a previous live. I said, the son, Hunter, has said, Austin has always had my back. He's no matter what, even if I'm wrong, he's always had my back. That can be potentially very telling when it comes to this case. Because again, if he did step up and it's 2 against 1, I don't know. That could be a recipe for disaster. And I could see any person feeling like their life is in danger, right? But like I said, we don't know everything yet, but let's continue on.
But you went over there to jack with them, no matter what.
Right, Carmelo, that's my girlfriend.
I have no further questions, Denali. Thank you.
She will she'll let her rip out. She knows Andrew too. She knows Andrew too.
We're going to go to Mr. EK. EK, my good friend up there in Chicago. Did you have any questions for Mark Anthony, 10-year friend of Andrew Anthony, Karmelo Anthony's dad?
I do, and thank you for coming on the platform and giving us some insight from your point of view, Mr. Anthony. The question I have is, you mentioned earlier that the brother said that they had taken his backpack. Is that accurate? So if that was the case, how was he able to get the poker out of the backpack?
That's a good question. If they threw it, how would he get his hands on it so they could pull out the knife, right?
They threw it. They took it.
So they took the poker.
He went back to retrieve it. He went back to retrieve it, and they're coming and they're walking toward him. And he says, "I'm gonna punch you in the face inward."
Yo! If that's true, that's knuckin' futz, y'all. Okay, so through the bag, he went up to get the bag. He grabbed the bag, and then that's when one of them, allegedly, let me just say this again, allegedly, one of them said, "I'm going to punch you in the face N-word." Say what? Okay. If that is true, then that is fair. I would say that's a fair assessment to say that this was racially motivated, but diggity damn, this is insane. Let's continue on.
And so here comes all this weight at him. So allegedly, I think this will come out. Allegedly, a hand is thrown, and Karmelo is trying to block it. Before this is said, though, he says, "I'm going to punch you in the face." He goes, "Touch me again and see what happens." Well, he tried to touch him. Karmelo tried to block it. And then a little pokey happened. I shouldn't say a little.
So they grabbed the
So then, of course, somebody gets their life taken. Austin Metcalf's life is taken. So there is a punch that's thrown. It's been blocked. And this is after he has said, "Touch me and see what happens." You have two guys going after him, both Metcalf boys, according to this Mark Anthony gentleman here, who claims to be friends of the family. He's saying that these two boys were going after him after Karmelo had said, "Touch me and see what happens." They still continue to advance towards him. That's when he pulls out the weapon. And of course, that's when the tragedy happens. This is interesting.
The bag, they threw the bag. Karmelo went to retrieve the bag. And that's how he was able to get his hand on the poker.
And let's not forget, he did say, "I'm going to punch you N-word." That's allegedly what Austin, you never know. It might have been Austin, it might have been Hunter. But what's being alleged is that coming from the Metcalf side, the N-word was spouted out from one of those boys. Then, of course, this whole thing went crazy, throwing the bag and all that stuff. But then I keep wondering if this is true. We have to err on the side of if this is true or not, okay? Because, people get on platforms and say all kinds of crazy stuff just to move the narrative, move the needle towards team one side versus team the other. So I say take this with a grain of salt. And of course, man, if this is really a family friend, I would love to get in touch with this person, because I'd like to ask some questions as well. Because, I got questions, y'all. I got questiones. But still, no matter what, we have to take what is being said here with a grain of salt, because, like I said, there's been all kinds of rumors, all kinds of lies, all kinds of ridiculousness flying out the gate. But this is very, very interesting that this person, alleged family friend, is speaking out now, and now is saying that this was indeed a racially motivated situation.
Right. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier to the young lady when I said, if I took her purse and tossed it, and she's going to get her stuff, and she had a pew-pew in there and, defended herself against me.
Sure,
I was just trying to put that together.
And you're saying that a racial slur was said to Carmelo.
Oh yeah.
So where did you hear this information from, Mr. Anthony?
Oh,
Yeah.
that I heard. That I heard in the bond hearing when they were trying to, and he came out and it was admitted. It was admitted. Yeah, that was all.
So has that been reported in the press?
The race car, this and that. It was.
My question, Mr. Anthony,
those were the words.
All that you're saying now, there were other people at the bond hearing. I'm assuming there were press people there, correct?
Correct.
There wasn't. They didn't.
Yeah,
really
but there
know
were
that
some
in the end.
press people there, correct?
Well, I can speak to that because I did watch a report. I think it was on ABC 7, where they had a round table, two reporters two reporters and an anchor person, and they kind of went through what was going on in the bottom.
Okay, so you see what this particular person, I'm glad this particular person is asking this question, because clearly I would sit there and go, well, all right, you weren't the only person in that bond hearing. I'm sure there was media, reporters and all that in the room. So why haven't they reported this information? If you heard that, why haven't they said that? You know for a fact this is juicy information, right? So instantly I'm going, wait a second. I would sit there and say the same thing too. If you were in the same room with all these other reporters, why haven't we heard any reports about this? That's massive information. The N-word was slung. Somebody threw, one of the boys, allegedly it was both boys, throwing the bag. And then this altercation happened and this tragedy happened. I mean, those pieces of information are massive. If, and I say if, what he's claiming is actually true. If he really was in that bond hearing, that's something else, right? Like I said, take this with a grain of salt.
So there is some press there.
So my question is, this is the first time that I'm hearing anything about what occurred in the bond hearing. And my assumption is if there were press people there, they would have put this information out.
No doubt.
But you know what? They're not. And they've already, it's like the first time this all went out, it was, they're trying to, the press don't want to admit that they're wrong. Fox News wanted to make Karmelo out to be a thug. And now that this is coming back around, because the brother had such a lame statement, didn't want to say that, oh, we took his bag, oh, we shoved him. That wasn't said. They're making him out to be a thug. Yeah, and so now that we know these things, it's kind of, you don't hear Fox going, hey, we didn't have all the information.
Donali just said ABC had people there. That's not Fox.
Right. But see, nobody wants to come back around and go, oh, you know what? This kid now with an aerospace engineering degree had 400 pounds coming out. We don't want to say we were sorry or wrong. I've never heard a newscast say, "Oh, we made the wrong call. We're sorry." They have to stick with that. I mean, there was this little lady in the picture that I texted that to you, right?
Which one?
Denali, didn't I text you that? With there's a little lady in that thing, and she was on Fox News or whatever newscast. She kept saying, and in the videos that I sent you, she kept saying, "Why did he come armed? Why did he come armed?" I mean,
that is a big thing about.
It's not illegal to have that. She kept saying that. Well, it's not illegal. It's just, I played sports. I played hockey. Cut athletic tape.
I personally think that the K&I is not going to come into play, only because I was looking at the case in Allison case, and they didn't charge him for bringing a KNIF on school property. They only charge him with the charge of murder.
That's exactly. And me and my girlfriend were talking about that today. How many people, you've been kicked out of school for having one, you've been suspended for having one, but you don't get criminal charges for having one.
Now, of course, there's been a conversation. And of course, I highly recommend you guys, if you are interested in seeing the rest of that the rest of the entire conversation that he has a long conversation with on this platform, Mr. Denali, XXL. I highly recommend you guys go and check it out. I look at this situation and I question how legitimate the interview is, how legitimate what he's saying, because again, what that person that asked that question in the video we just saw, he's got a good point. If there's so much information that was said, details, big, juicy details about what actually happened between Austin Metcalf, Hunter Metcalf, and Karmelo Anthony, why haven't we heard any of those things? Now, I know a certain corner of the world is going to sit there and go, oh my God, it's a media cover-up. And I say, maybe, but then at the same time, maybe not. Because I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say certain things to, like I said, make the narrative adjust in the way that they want the narrative to be. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that this guy isn't telling the truth, but I do think it's very interesting that massively huge bombshell details that may have been said at that bond hearing were never heard in the general public. We'd all be talking about that. Every single person that's been covering this case, we'd all be talking about that ad nauseum right now. We'd be saying it over and over and over again. Oh, they took his bag. They threw it away from him. They called him the N-word. They swung at him. He said, don't touch me. Touch me and find out. Then both of them attacked him. Now, one thing is for sure. We have to remember. One thing is for sure. At least according to Karmelo Anthony's mother, she said in that press conference, she did say verbatim, whatever happened between my son, Karmelo Anthony, and those Metcalf boys. She didn't say whatever happened between my son and Austin Metcalf. No, she said Metcalf boys. So instantly we are all wondering what actually happened here. What's the actual truth? Is Karmelo telling the full truth? Was this fully 110% self-defense, or was it not? Because the kid could easily, I'm sorry, guys, we have to leave these things on the table. The kid could easily lie. He could easily make up things just so he looks good to save his own booty. Real talk. But then at the same time, he could also be telling the truth. But he can add a few things there and a few things here just to stir the pot, make it seem like it's something that it's not. Or this really is at face value what actually happened. Now, what this gentleman said in this interview, I don't know. Don't know if it's entirely true. I ask you guys, do you believe this account or not? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Like I said, he could very well have been in the room and saw and heard everything at that bond hearing, heard things from the family and whatnot. But at the same time, it does make it seem a little bit weird that he would be in the bond hearing. There'd be details, juicy details that he's only reiterating right now, that he's only putting out right now, that I feel like the media would have eaten that up and made a meal out of it by now if that information was really out here like that, if the media actually heard those details. But like I said, anything's possible. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts are. Like I said, take this with a grain of salt. Don't know if it's entirely 110% true, but, you know, as time continues, maybe there will be more truth, and maybe what he's saying here will be absolutely 110% accurate to what actually happened between the Metcalf boys and Karmelo Anthony. We'll see what happens. Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hit that like button down below. Crush that subscribe button. And we'll talk here very, very soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.